Today, I want to continue in what we started, Mr. Speaker, just a week or so ago. We're introducing the folks that the country has sent from our side to be members here and join myself and others to take this fight from the majority, from not only from their streets and the campaigns, but now into the floor of the House. So this afternoon, we're going to start off with one of our new members from New York's 19th Congressional District, John Faso. John comes from I found out as I was looking through his background, comes from the same hometown as President Martin Van Buren in there, and also from our colleague Chris Gibson, who was here for a while. I think if there's anything that sums up what I've talked and heard from John's heart is his economic condition that we're in, and the fact that our debts and our cannot be continue to be sustained. And we've got to put in good practices that not only take into account his district, which is a wonderful part of New York State and the growing application there, but how we can take that all over the country. So with great pride, it's my privilege to introduce the newest Congressman from the New York's 19th Congressional District, John Faso, to tell us a little bit why he's here and his vision for what we have.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the gentleman from Georgia, his hospitality in yielding the floor to me at this time. Indeed, I am privileged to represent the 19th Congressional District of New York State. This encompasses a wide area of the Mid-Hudson Valley, the Catskill region, and the district touches Vermont in the northeast corner and Pennsylvania in the southeast corner. We go out to Cooperstown, and we have great local locations like Woodstock, where many people are familiar with Woodstock, where the concert was supposed to be back in the late 60s, but also where the concert occurred in Bethel, New York, in Sullivan County. The district encompasses all or part of 11 counties. The gentleman from Georgia referenced the fact that I reside for the last almost 34 years in Kinderhook, New York, the hometown of Martin Van Buren, our 8th president. Our district also has within it the town of Hyde Park in Dutchess County, which is the home of a president who is extraordinarily well known and recognized for his great contributions to our country, Franklin D. Roosevelt. And I encourage people to come visit Hyde Park and the Roosevelt home and mansion, and also Kinderhook. And I would be remiss if I did not also mention that the 19th District has the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, where I know a number of members will be coming up later this year to play a game of baseball in a charitable fundraising event. Mr. Chairman, my colleagues, Mr. Collins had made reference to the economic condition. The economic condition in upstate New York is extremely difficult. Of the 11 counties in my district, for instance, all 11 have lost population in the last 5 years. What's happened is that people are leaving because of high local taxes, burdensome rules, and this comes not just from Albany, but also from Washington. And this is one of the things that I think the people sent me here to Congress to work on. I ran on a platform of economic growth. We must get our economy moving, and we must get it moving fast, and grow at rates that are not in the anemic 1.5% to 1.8% level, but up to 3.5% and 4% if we are going to produce enough wealth and opportunity for our children and grandchildren. Indeed, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot allow this generation to leave to the next generation a country that's immeasurably poorer and less well off than the country that we were given by our parents and grandparents. I'm privileged to serve on 3 committees here in the Congress: the Budget Committee, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, where I'm honored to serve as Vice Chairman of the Subcommittee on Rails, and also the Committee on Agriculture. All 3 of these committees are going to be vitally significant in terms of my tenure here in this 2 years of Congress, but also for the people of our district. Agriculture, we have a robust and growing agricultural economy. It is dairy, where a lot of dairy farmers are struggling with the low price of milk, but also fruits and vegetables. And we've got a remarkable number of new producers, yogurt producers, cheese producers, beef and pork producers, because we live only 125 to 150 miles away from the city of New York and the tremendous metropolitan area and the tremendous market that entails. On the Agriculture Committee, I'll be fighting hard to protect the interests of our dairy community and small farmers, to make sure that we encourage our young farmers, young people, to go into agriculture, and I'm be pleased to soon supporting a measure which will encourage young people to go into agriculture. On transportation and infrastructure, I mentioned the rail subcommittee. Our district is blessed to have the beautiful Hudson Valley. And the Hudson Valley, the Empire State Corridor of Amtrak, is one of the busiest in the nation. It's also one of the profit centers for Amtrak. Many people ride the train between Albany and New York City on a daily basis, in fact. It's vitally important to our commerce and to our business interests in our district. We also have a number of freight rail facilities. I'll be working closely with folks out in Otsego County and Oneonta on the project that they're looking at for their rail facility in that community. Lastly, as I mentioned, I serve on the Budget Committee. Just today, we heard a report from the Congressional Budget Office. The chief of the CBO came before us. He indicated that today we have almost $20 trillion of national debt. And that's just the on-the-books government national debt. He also said to us, within 10 years, we're going to be facing another $10 trillion on top of that. $30 trillion, my colleagues, is not sustainable. It is, in essence, it's generational theft. It's saying that we would spend today our children and grandchildren's inheritance, that we are forcing, by borrowing today, beyond our means, we are forcing our children and grandchildren in the future to pay for our spending today. So this indeed is a crisis point. It's a crisis point for our country. It's a crisis point for every man, woman, and child in our nation. In fact, if you look at the data, right now our national debt is the equivalent of about $60,000 for every man, woman, and child in America. We have to get this under control, and the way to get it under control is we have to deal with growth. We've got to get economic growth, and smart tax and regulatory changes can help us spur the private sector economy to grow this economy, to create more opportunity, to create more wealth and jobs for our families all across the nation, but particularly from my vantage point in upstate New York. But we also need to take a hard look at reforming entitlement programs. You know, there's precedent for doing this. President Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill and the great former senator from New York State, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, and others came together in the early 80s, and they fixed the Social Security financing problem for over 40 years. Well, the timeline for fixing that problem is running out. I encourage people at home and citizens all across this country, pull out your Social Security earnings statement. Pull out that statement that the Social Security Administration sends to you each year. If you look at it closely, it'll say that in 2034, just a mere 18 years from now, 17 years from now, in 2034, Social Security can only pay approximately 75 or 76% of the promised benefits. We have it in our capacity to fix this problem, to assure that all the seniors are taken care of, and that those close and near retirement will not be affected. But we also have to reform the system so that our children and grandchildren have the prospect of something there for them in the future. We cannot, again, be the generation to leave our kids and our grandchildren holding the bag with a country less wealthy, with less opportunity than the country that our parents and grandparents gave to us. So I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to come before the House today, and I'm very happy that Mr. Collins has, with his wisdom and experience here in the House, has afforded us this opportunity to come here and describe what's going on in our districts, why we came here and what we want to do, and what we hope to accomplish over the next 2 years.
Well, it is, Congressman Faso, I tell you, what is amazing, why we...
Receive a message.
Right.
Mr. Speaker, a message from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker,
Madam Secretary.
I have been directed by the Senate to inform the House that the Senate agreed to H.J. Res. 38, a resolution disapproving the rule submitted by the Department of the Interior known as the Stream Protection Rule.
The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's good news to get from the Senate, so that was timely. But I want to think, one of the reasons we do this, and I think the Colonel Faso, you actually mentioned this, is what we forget so many times. We come in here and we're grouped together as 435. But the reality is we all come from our individual districts. And listening to your story, listening to why you came, that is what keeps us grounded. This is wonderful hallowed halls for us to remember all the history that's been here. But when we come here, you bring that personal story, and that's what the voters elect you to do. And again, I mean, a pretty amazing district. I'm learning about a lot of districts. When you have Woodstock, the area of Woodstock, and you have Cooperstown in the same district, that's pretty cool. So I appreciate you being here and looking forward to your service. It's going to be
well.
a great
I
time.
thank the gentleman from Georgia. I look forward to working with him, and I look forward to working with all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to try to fix what is wrong with our country today, to improve on what we already have, to create a sustainable future for all Americans. That's why I ran, and that's why I'm here, and I thank the gentleman from Georgia for the opportunity to come before the House to speak with you today.
Well,